Hi, I'm Larry Kavanagh, and I'd like to read you a segment from my book titled Purgatory Goes Viral. This is the third and final book in a series called the Louisa Trilogy. The first book had chronicled about how a space scientist from NASA, namely me, could uproot himself from the space program in Washington and relocate himself and his family into a little rural place called Louisa, Virginia, where he ultimately had a slew of life-changing and wonderful experiences. The second book was a series of lies and fantasies about Louisa, based on the fact that this little place didn't have enough history attached to it, so I tried to invent some. It was lies, exaggerations, tales about outrageous things throughout history that never happened, and great fun to write. The third book, this one, goes back to the truth, and it talks about a few events in my early married life that I was too embarrassed to put into the first book, some crazy physics projects that I inflicted upon my classes when I served as a stint as a teacher in Louisa County High School, a surprising reaction that I got from an adult enrichment class about purgatory that I presented at my church, and a few other oddities involving grandchildren and doctors. You can get all three of these books at Amazon, and they're available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover editions. Yes, Louisa is a real place in Central Virginia, although I sometimes have thought that it is more fantasy than real. But I assure you, it is real. The chapter that I'm going to read is about the physics class that I taught at the high school. It was the time when I told the class that I could use atmospheric pressure to make them helpless, and they all volunteered eagerly to have me do it. So let's get to it. The chapter is entitled Shrink Wrap the Physics Class, and it's chapter 11 in the book. Shrink wrap the whole physics class? Sounds like a teacher's fantasy. Put each student into a plastic bag and hold them helpless. Then go on with your lecture, or tell jokes, or make up another homework assignment, or have a cup of coffee, all without any students bothering you. Yes, I shrink wrapped the whole class, and it was fun. Then they shrink wrapped me, and they had fun. I wish I could say that this particular physics demonstration was an original idea of mine. However, to give credit where it is due, the idea came from a field trip we took to the Virginia Air and Space Science Center in Hampton, where they did something very similar. It seemed more like entertainment than physics. Although there was a solid physics lesson behind it, there was no data that needed to be taken, and there was no report that needed to be written. I shrink wrapped everybody while one of my students took some video, and I put a 5-minute segment of the video on YouTube. The video got more than 20,000 hits, plus some very nice comments. I'll show a little segment of it at the end of this reading. Thanks, Air and Space Center. The science justification for this was the power of atmospheric pressure. The only props that were needed were a goodly supply of giant transparent plastic bags that were made for leaf collection and a wet-dry vacuum cleaner with a hose attachment. The plastic bags had to be big enough for a student to get inside, with his head sticking out, of course. Once the student climbed into the bag and sat on the floor in front of the class, where he or she could be laughed at, I would close it snugly around his or her neck and stick the hose from the vacuum cleaner inside. Attempting to be the good lecturer, I explained that the pressure of the air surrounding all of us is a whopping 14.7 pounds per square inch, and that would be more than enough to crush us into powder if there weren't something to resist it. The something that keeps us safe and alive is the pressure produced by the air inside our own bodies. If we didn't have this inside pressure, we would be pulverized. if we didn't have the outside pressure pushing on us from the atmosphere, the pressure inside our bodies would cause us to explode. Good thing everything is in balance. Now, if I take away all the air between the plastic bag and the student's body, the outside air will cause the plastic bag to press hard, and it will put a tight grip on the student. So tight that the student won't be able to move. Believe it. Any volunteers? Not surprisingly, everybody volunteered. Once I had my first victim in place, with the vacuum hose stuck inside the bag and the top of the bag wrapped snugly around my victim's neck, I turned the vacuum on. All the air inside the bag quickly disappeared, leaving the student trapped inside a very tight-fitting plastic suit. The plastic was tight enough to paralyze the student. He looked like a fetus inside a womb. All it took was the slightest touch of my hand to tip him over and roll him around the floor like a beach ball. He was my prisoner, and I could roll him anywhere I wanted. The physics lesson for this beach ball of a student had been made, but that lesson may have gotten lost in the pleasure of the class at seeing his helplessness, at least until I pulled the vacuum hose out of the bag. And every single member of the class said, "Do me too." Good thing I had brought a lot of plastic bags. I gave the obligatory cautions, i.e., don't do this at home, and remember, if you're not careful, you could suffocate. Then proceeded to shrink wrap the rest of them. And of course, they also had the opportunity to shrink wrap me. No, we didn't try to freeze dry anybody. That would have been going too far. I'm glad they shrink wrapped me, because it was a surprising sensation. You actually do feel like a beach ball. Fun to think what atmospheric pressure can do. Now, as advertised, here's a little segment from the video we took. Face here. Being careful not to include your face in the shrink wrap. Very important. But to get around your neck about fairly as tight as we can. So you do. Here we go. I've never done this before, but here we go. Oh gosh.
He's like a little butterfly. I'm out of my cocoon and I'm free.
That full video, plus more than a dozen other videos of crazy things my physics class and I did, are posted on YouTube, all as given as links in the book, along with QR codes, all in the book. There are 26 other chapters in this book, and I hope you will enjoy them. The book is available at Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover formats. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.